We're back now with Congresswoman Haley Stevens, who's running for the U.S. Senate. Emily, please.
So Michigan landed a giant factory data center for AI, estimated $7 billion investment here, but only creating 450 jobs. We talked a little bit how we've seen AI and battery jobs falter. What kind of industries would you be seeking to attract to Michigan that'll set us up to be economically successful 50 or 100 years from now?
Yeah, well, look, I can tell you that it's got to be in our industrial sector. It's got to be in manufacturing. And one of the things that we worked on coming out of the Great Recession that I was a part of in the Obama administration was the diversifying of our supply chain. I want to see us become a leader in critical minerals and processing and refining. That is actually something I was working on earlier this week. I was visiting Cerba Solutions that recycles batteries and distills it back down to their original mineral form, which is remarkable. But one thing we know is that we have let processing and refining go over to China. I want to see us lower costs, bring jobs back here to Michigan, and certainly continue to innovate in that regard. So this is why I have authored a 100-page bill called Unearth America's Future Act. This is mirrored off of what we did with the CHIPS and Science Act. This is real industrial policy, loan guarantees, tax credits, and the like that would grow an industry like that here in Michigan and create a lot of jobs.
Back, though, to a data center, you know, one of the things, right, that we have seen is concern locally, just in terms of costs of electricity, the amount of just water that needs to be used to keep the computers cool. Like, is this the kind of industry that Michigan should be going after right now?
It more so broadly speaks to energy policy and infrastructure policy. And I believe that the cues need to be taken at the local and the state level. One of the questions I had coming out of yesterday's announcement is, how does the municipality feel? How does the municipality feel about this? And what I heard is they went door to door, that this passed in a vote, that there is a cost-saving measure. And look, we're saddled with billions of dollars of legacy costs. You know, I work really closely with the Great Lakes Water Authority that provides our water into our faucets. And they're telling me, Haley, we've got, you know, the 2030s coming right up around the corner. And again, this speaks to leadership that we need at the lawmaking table for our state. We've got a $1 billion, 100-foot pipe problem. So, you know, where did the funds get created for that? Is there some sort of deal to cut? Is there, you know, a fund that could come out of some of these energy policy relationships? Those are questions I have, but I do think they need to start coming from the local and the state level, and then let the, you know, the feds and federal lawmakers, you know, take those requests from the bottom up.
Are your two opponents qualified to serve in the U.S. Senate?
Well, look, I can talk to you about my qualifications. I'm not here to I'm not here to get into the punditry, Tim. I'm going to leave that to you.
But if you don't answer the question, I got nothing.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, we can continue to talk about the great bills I've written and some of the things that I'm working on.
Let me rephrase it this way. Okay, what do you like about your opponents, if anything?
Well, look, there's a dedication to service. You know, I would certainly say that. I think there's also a commitment to making sure that Mike Rogers doesn't get anywhere close to the United States Senate. That's what I wake up every single day, you know, as a candidate focused on. I'm certainly, as a lawmaker, I'm focused on my public service to the state. And I would say this. Look, I think I'm in the strongest and best position to defeat Mike Rogers next fall. I'm out here earning the votes of Michiganders. I spent this summer on a Made in Michigan tour, getting into the nooks and crannies of communities across this state, you know, sitting down with our farmers, seeing how, frankly,
Republican... They're doing the same stuff. They're doing the same thing.
Well, I'm focused on my race. I mean, honestly, I mean, there's going to be analysis that's going on and determinations made. And, you know, look, this election is, you know, over 40 weeks away. I mean, it's a long time from now. We got to get on the ballot. And we've also, you know, I'm focused on earning the votes of Michiganders.
But you said you're best positioned to defeat Mike Rogers. Do you have any concerns that there's a group of progressive voters out there? I mean, we saw it happen in the presidential race last year, who may not vote for you in a general election because of your stance on what's happening in Israel?
Well, look, I'm focused on meeting Michiganders where they're at. I've always.
But you have to have thought about this. I mean, there's a block of voters that this is a very important issue to them, and they disagree with you on it.
Well, I would say that, you know, at every stretch and throughout this terrible war that, you know, we're in the early stages of a ceasefire, that we've wanted to see long-term peace. We've wanted to see a permanent and lasting ceasefire. I have voted consistently and every chance I've gotten to get aid into the region, to get aid into Gaza. I have called on the U.S. and Israel to continue to work together on that front. And I've also played a role in terms of shining a light on the hostages that were held in a really brutal way. Some Americans for over 700 days. We're obviously elated to see those individuals come home. And I believe that, you know, common sense and practicality. I'm a transparent lawmaker, Craig. I mean, I you know, am going to continue to meet people where they're at, and I'm going to talk about the things that are on folks' minds, which are also the cost of living.
But one follow-up to that.
Sure.
Different angle. Do you think Kamala Harris and Joe Biden handled that issue correctly in Michigan? The way they campaigned on it, the way they seated, Trump was in Dearborn, Trump was in Hamtramck, he was campaigning there, set up an office. Do you think they handled it correctly?
Well, I'm not here to play pundit or look to the past.
This matters to voters in the state. I mean, there's a group of voters out there that you will need to win this Senate race.
I mean, to Craig's point, we saw a diminished number of folks vote in Michigan for president over this issue, and that could continue, you know, next in this upcoming. It absolutely, I mean, when you're talking about 100,000 voters, I mean, that matters.
Yeah, and look, you know, you had the president making commitments around manufacturing, and he's got erratic shoot-by-the-hip tariffs targeting Canada, creating all this job uncertainty, creating this level of increased unemployment. We have in some counties in Michigan some of the fastest growing unemployment in the union. So that's changed. You know, his approval rating is different today than it was when he won the election. And if we're litigating the past, we're not looking towards the future.
Well, do you see Gaza as an active issue if the ceasefire holds?
Look, I think we're all praying for peace, and a commitment that I have worked to make, you know, over and over again, is that hope for a permanent and lasting ceasefire. To see that achieved, to see the people of Gaza, Palestinian people living in peace side by side with the people of Israel, that is the goal.
What percentage of your contributions come from out of state?
You know, I think the majority of my contributions, I believe, are coming from Michigan. Someone just yesterday was telling me that I have a fair amount of support coming from Michigan. They were pleased to see that, because here's the deal. 93% of my contributions, Tim, are under $100 or less. And they're coming from nurses, they're coming from teachers, they're coming from grocery clerk workers, you know, police officers, the like.
So what do you think of those candidates that go out to Hollywood and rub arms with those stars raising money? What do you think about that?
Well, I would say
Why are you smiling?
Because I love rubbing, you know, shaking hands and rubbing elbows with the people of Michigan. Running statewide here in, you know, all 83 counties in Michigan is a beautiful and remarkable thing. You know, we've got a story to tell. We sometimes get underestimated in Michigan, and we absolutely need to stay focused.
So you think it's a bad look to go to Hollywood to raise money?
Look, I'm going to say that you've got to be focused on Michigan if you're running statewide in Michigan.
Speaking of running statewide, we're going to have something that's really remarkable this next year's election, which is this open U.S. Senate seat and an open gubernatorial race, like two huge statewide seats. You know, we'll get through the primary. We will have a candidate who will be running for governor as a Democrat. Most likely, whoever's running as a Democrat for Senate, there'll be some campaigning together. And the answer can't be, I'm focused on my own race. Who would you like to campaign with? As a fellow Democrat running for statewide. I said what the answer can't be.
No, wait a minute. She doesn't want to be a pundit. Okay, please.
No, I love it. They're throwing a little tomatoes at me, but, you know, you, the viewers, can see what I'm all about. I'll tell you this. As the only candidate for Senate in Michigan who's been endorsed by labor unions, all right, I am really geeked to be campaigning alongside organized labor. I am really geeked to be out there with the Teamsters and the pipe fitters and people all across this state.
Were you geeked when the head of the UAW embraced Donald Trump's policies?
Look, we had some conversations about the tariffs and where they go. I would give the UAW a lot of credit for.
Were you comfortable with him?
Let me finish.
Okay.
I would give the UAW credit for negotiating with Chrysler to bring jobs back here. The UAW, and in particular, the light they are shining on plant closures this century is very
But
important.
the question was the relationship with Donald Trump.
I don't see a relationship with him, and you can talk to them about that. There have been announcements at the White House, that they've had to put fake union members there towards. I'm seeing the tariffs play out in a way that we've lost a $50 million manufacturing investment in the Metro Detroit area. That suppliers in my district, 450 layoffs in the last week. This isn't funny. The conversations I am having with people are very similar, eerily similar, to the time period of the Great Recession, except for this time, this is a self-inflicted moment of uncertainty coming from Donald Trump.
Will you commit to doing a debate with Abdul and Senator McMorrow?
Well, we're certainly going to be setting all that up when the on-year
So you're
comes
going to do
on.
one?
Yeah.
You're going to do one? That's a yes?
Well,
You said you're gonna
forums,
set one up.
meetings, conversations.
It can be a forum or a
appreciate your
debate.
attention to language,
Yeah,
How about we have-
Craig, if you're hosting, I mean, I don't know if you're moderating
I
debates.
host debates. Okay. Would you be willing to do one here?
The discourse of democracy is certainly very important, and I have had many debates over my time running for
And you'd be
office.
willing to
So
show up here with the other two.
we could certainly have that conversation.
Whoops, the conversation's not the same as a yes.
I want to go back to relationships with Donald Trump. We've seen certainly Democrats across the spectrum. Governor Whitmer here has been, I think, one of the more play ball with Donald Trump approaches. We've seen her in the Oval Office. We've seen her try to leverage that for things like Selfridge. You've seen like a J.B. Pritzker on the other end of that spectrum, perhaps being really combative, trying to fight Trump at every turn. Where do you sort of see yourself on that spectrum? Like, how much are you willing to engage with Trump versus how much are you trying to combat him?
Well, I'm certainly realistic that bills need to get signed into law. But the moment we find ourselves in right now is that this president is intent on governing through executive order and throwing the Constitution out, and it's not appropriate. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, hasn't called us back to session in the middle of this negotiation. It's not how it works.
So if he called you to the Oval Office, you would not go?
Look, I'd go to talk about my critical minerals bill. I think it's a really good solution. I'd go to talk about how to tackle our debt and our deficit. There could be some bipartisan solutions there. I'd go to talk about standing up for the people of Michigan's health care. I'd go to pressure on unlocking emergency dollars to make sure SNAP benefits aren't missed and lapsed. I mean, this is real. We need functional, effective government. We need government that people can trust. This is one of the reasons I am running for United States Senate, because I believe that is me, and that is how I've spent my time in public service, and that is who and how I've been dedicated to trust and dedicated to people as voters.
Representative, thanks for doing our program.
Thank you.
Now you're off to Sault Ste. Marie.
Off to the races.
Lucky you. See you next week for more Off the Record, folks.